Hello chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to my best chess games of all time series. So in this series we follow the best of the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And today I wanted to show you, well, one of the most tactical chess games in history, and it was played by Vassily Ivanchuk against Artur Yusupov. So the game was played in 1991. It was in the candidates match. Many great players were playing in the candidates tournament. So the winner was Nigel Short. He then faced Garry Kasparov in their match game in 1993. Garry Kasparov won the game with 12.5 to 7.5. But before we start to analyze the game, I wanted to show you really an interesting fact that the best chess players back in the 90s were basically Soviet players. So you see, we had Garry Kasparov, the top-rated player Karpov with 27 and 25, rated Boris Gelfand, Ivanchuk, Evgeny Bareev, Mikhail Gurevich, Jan Elvest, Leonid Yudasin, Valery Salov, and Alexander Belyavsky. So we haven't even Artur Yusupov here that I wanted to show you his game today. He played really an attacking brilliancy, and Vasily Ivanchuk. And Vasily Ivanchuk was sort of a player. He was one of the rare players who dared to challenge Garry Kasparov in an open game. Basically, most of the players tried to go positionally against Garry Kasparov, not Vasily. Vasily was always trying to play an open position and had also good success, and that was one of the rare players that Garry Kasparov really hated to play against. And I wanted to show you also this candidates tournament. You see, it was very interesting. Yusupov won the game against Tolmatov, Ivanchuk won the game against Yudasin, Spielman lost against Nigel Short. You see, Viktor Korchnoi lost against, won the game. Gelfand won against Nikolic, Timman won against Hübner, and Anand won the game against Drev. Now it gets really dynamic in the quarterfinals. Dynamic won Jan Timman won the game against Viktor Korchnoi. Unbelievable stuff. And you see, Yusupov won the game against Vasily Ivanchuk. So I think that was really one of the worst moments in Vasily Ivanchuk's career. What was also interesting, Nigel Short won the game against Gelfand. Now you see, Anatoly Karpov won the game against Vishy Anand. So two former world champions here. Jan Timman won the game against Yusupov. So Yusupov got crushed in the quarterfinals. But now in the semifinals, we see Nigel Short won the game against Anatoly Karpov. Great stuff. And then Nigel Short won the game against Jan Timman, as I said, then faced the legendary Garry, but Garry was of course too tough to battle. Back in the 90s, he was really the best chess player. So let's see now this tactical gameplay by Ivanchuk against Yusupov. It was really something else. Even my computer doesn't calculate all of these tactics correct. I think in one particular moment he shows a good move for white. It seems that black is completely lost, but then the tactical sequence ends even with a checkmate. So great stuff. Let's see the game. As I said, Vasily Ivanchuk against Artur Yusupov. So here we have c4, the English opening, e5, sort of a reverse Sicilian style. We have g3 and now d6, bishop on g2, and now g6 played by Yusupov. We have d4. Immediately you see how Vasily plays chess. He plays immediately these open positions with d4, knight on d7, d takes e5 doesn't bring you so much. We can simply recapture with the knight take. After knight takes on f3, it's not a problem. It's an equalized position. Bishop takes, and here castling knight on f6 and similar ideas. We can try also some c6 moves. Also, it leaves some weaknesses on d6, but we can create sort of a Boleslavsky wall. I've explained this Boleslavsky wall more in my basics in chess views. It's a basic setup that you can that you can play in order to prevent your opponent's ability to play with some minor pieces, like you're covering this very important central squares with your own pawns. So it's a good setup. Sometimes here in the game, Ivanchuk played knight on c3 in order to create a more dynamic position here in the center. Bishop on g7, we have knight on f3, knight on f6. Again, this d takes e5 idea is not so dangerous. I think here we can prevent even with c6 some knight on d5 outpost, so an equalized position in an early stage of the game. So of course Vasily Ivanchuk wants to avoid these types of positions, he wants to play more active here with his pieces. So castling played by Yusupov, we have queen on c2, also a common move, developing move, and now rook on e8. This is a challenging move by black, because he wants to, here Yusupov wants really now to force Vasily Ivanchuk to make sort of a clarification here in the center, because he's now challenging now really white center, and prepares also this very important e4 move. This e4 move, it comes often in these types of positions. Then you have this weakness on e4, but at least it creates sort of a space advantage on the fourth rank. The game will then be based simply around this particular pawn. And here in the game, Ivanchuk played rook on d1, played a very annoying discovered attack by the rook on the queen, and now c6. Here b3 was played by Ivanchuk, preparing now very interesting idea, bishop on a3, creating an attack against this weak d6 pawn. That's why queen on e7 was first played, and now bishop on a3. This game now becomes really dynamic. Here in the game, of course, Yusupov has to play the move e4, because there are now even some tactical threats with knight takes on e5 because of this very annoying ping. So here with this e4 move, Yusupov releases the pressure a little bit here in the center, and of course Ivanchuk played knight on g5. And the problem is now that white has attacked this pawn 4 times. You have only protected with 3 pieces, so that's why you have to advance the pawn. Here we have e3 played by Yusupov. It's now very interesting to choose f4 or f3. If you play f3, then knight on f8 will be played, of course, and then after knight on e4, we can play knight takes on e4, and after f takes e4, it seems that white has locked a little bit this pawn on e6, on e3, pardon me. This will be our main target from white's perspective, but then black has maybe here some knight on e6 ideas. This is very dangerous. You see, we have created an attack against this d4 pawn. You have to choose now to play d5 or e5, so it's a really complicated game already. But in the game, Ivanchuk played the move f4, simply fixing the position. Now the knight is also supported, and here Yusupov played now finally this move knight on f8. We want, of course, to have a good diagonal for the bishop. The bishop can now come actively into the game, so it also prevents some knight on e4 idea by white. And here Vasily Ivanchuk simply continued to push here on the queen side with b4, and now of course his idea is to open somehow the position for this bishop, because as I said, we have here really a dangerous discovered attack possibility. Bishop on f5 played by Yusupov, queen on b3 getting out of the way, and now h6, very important move, kicking away the knight, and now knight on f3. Knight on g4 played by Yusupov. So you see, we have a very active knight. The problem is that you cannot kick away the knight with the move h3, because we have then knight on f2 attacking the rook, but also we are attacking this h3 pawn, so that wouldn't be a good idea. So that's why here Ivanchuk simply left the knight here on g4 on this very active square. So you see, black has already occupied white's position, his territory here with the move g4, and it's really annoying knight to battle against. You would love to kick it away, but here Ivanchuk played a simple counter attack with the move b5. If you try something like d5 here, maybe it would be better here for Ivanchuk. It leads now into a really complicated line. Also, you see, this game is really dynamic. We have some discovered attack possibilities, some pawn breakthrough possibilities, some knight outpost possibilities. I don't know, many of these tactical possibilities. Of course, it's hard to calculate all of that. Here after d5, the interesting idea would be here after knight on f2. This would lead into very aggressive line after d takes c6 and b takes c6. Now to play b5, simply leaving the rook hanging. After c takes b5, knight takes on b5, and white would be leaving both of these rooks hanging. But of course, in the next move you can only take one, and here in the continuation, if you try bishop on a1, we have rook on a1, and here after something like rook on d8, we have bishop on b2. It would be very interesting. Now I would love to see this kind of game in which black is up the exchange, but has some dark square problems in the continuation after something like king on h7, queen on c3, and this is very dangerous. Knight on e6 would be a forced line maybe. And here in this position, it's even worse if you take this rook on d1, then rook on d1, and now there's no way you can stop black to take this pawn on d6. You can maybe sacrifice the pawn by advancing the pawn, but rook on d8 doesn't work here anymore. Bishop takes on d6 is a serious threat. So here, instead of d5, Vasily played the move b5, and this is also a very nice tactical game from this point on. We have g5 by Yusupov, opens the position here on the queen side, because we have fixed the position here on the king side, pardon me, with the move e3. And when you have an advanced pawn on one particular side, of course you want to continue attack on this side. And after potential b takes c6 that was played in the game, we have b takes c6, and the problem of whites is now that the dynamics is a little bit splashed now. If you try something like d5, we can always simply pass through and block the position on the queen side. We have solved all problems, and basically the game continues only here on the king side where black has the attack. The same idea, if you try c5, we can simply continue to push here on d5, and again we have solved the problem. So this is this mobile pawn structure that's not allowing here white to create a counterplay. And here in the game, it's after g5 here, as said, the b takes c6 was played, and b takes c6. We have now very interesting idea, knight on e5 played by Vassily Ivanchuk. Of course, you cannot take the knight, because again I'm pointing out this bishop is really dangerous. It leaves now Ivanchuk the possibility to take the pawn on c6, but here Yusupov simply left the pawn on c6 hanging. He simply continued to push here, g takes f4, and here if you try g takes f4, it's really game over. It's unbelievable how good this coordination of the pieces is. Here we can simply take first the knight, bishop takes on e5. After f takes e5, you see very dangerous queen on h4. We have here a very powerful mating net around white's king. Here if you try h3, it's not a problem. We can still play knight on f2. If you try to get back with the rook maybe into the defense, we have bishop takes on h3, bishop takes, and now knight takes on h3. You can go maybe with your king here on g2, but now rook on e6, and this will be game over. Supported with this queen and then knight, this will be a losing game for white. So that's why here knight on c6 was played, simply leaving here the dynamics on the king side, and here queen on g5. Yusupov uses now this moment to get the queen on the same file like the king, and this is very dangerous, because black has really some discover attack possibilities. And here Ivanchuk made maybe a slight inaccuracy by simply taking the pawn on d6 immediately. It's a better way to maybe play first the move h4, kicking away the queen. At least the queen has to go here on the h file. It's not on the same file like the king, so now maybe to take the pawn on d6 after knight on g6, of course preparing some f takes g3 ideas, and then knight takes on h5 h4. Here you can play queen on b5. This would be a defensive setup here by white. And here if you try something like f takes g3, after bishop takes on g3, we can play knight takes on h4, and here simply take bishop takes on h4, queen takes, but now the bishop on f5 would be hanging. Instead of that, as said, here Ivanchuk played bishop on d6, and this is really now problem, because here knight on g6 is immediately played, and you cannot of course again take this pawn. G takes f4, because we can recapture with the knight and still play on our main idea to play queen on h4, and then again white would be having problems. So instead of that, knight on d5 played by Ivanchuk. Very interesting idea to simply release the pressure here a little bit by simply playing knight on e7 and kicking away the king, and also trade off at least this knight, because you see black has regrouped his pieces very well here around white's king. So this is now at least sort of a defensive setup here by Ivanchuk. Of course he has to defend, he has the problems, he has only the bishop here on g2, that's defending the king, and here already there are some pawn exchanges possible, so that's why here knight on d5 it's a good move. But here Artur Yusupov simply continued with queen on h5, and now we have serious threats here on h2. Here h4 was played, and here Yusupov played knight takes on h4, and this move is calculated by the top engines like a mistake, but you see in the continuation that it's really hard here to find counterattacks. Maybe knight on f2 is a better line suggested by top engines, by my engine, but here after knight takes on f4, knight takes on f4, after bishop takes on f4, bishop on e4 is an interesting idea. After rook on f1, we can maybe sneak in somehow with the queen, and white would be forced maybe to give up his rook for the knight. But as said, here Artur Yusupov really chose a more aggressive line with knight takes on h4. We have g takes h4, and now queen takes on h4. Of course, preparing some queen on h2 ideas, but at least white can escape here through the square f1. Here knight on e7 was played, king on h8, and now knight takes on f5. You see, Yusupov sacrificed another piece, but then he has at least this check. Queen on f2, king on f1 has to be played, and now rook on e6, a very interesting idea. And the problem here for me is that here my computer shows the evaluation +7 for white, and it's unbelievable. The next suggested move by white here is the move queen on b7. And the problem is about this move that we can play simply like Yusupov did, rook on g6. If you try something like, I don't know, a passive move, the checkmate pattern that we have here is queen on h1. If you take, then you see we have knight on h2 with the check. You have only one square, and then we have rook on g1, a very nice checkmate pattern here. So you see, after rook on g6, I don't see now good lines, and as I said, this queen on b7 move is suggested by engines. Then the computer makes the move, and it basically is winning for black. Unbelievable stuff how deep this tactical calculation by Artur Yusupov was here. He played simply on his attack, left also another piece hanging, queen on a8. So now Yusupov has sacrificed 3 pieces, but now he can hide with his king. Here he played king on h7, and again, if you try something like knight from c to e7, again comes this checkmate pattern with knight on h2 and rook on g1. So that's why here Ivanchuk realized his threats, and he played here, instead of knight on e2, he played queen on g8. He had to give up the queen. He has to now sacrifice the queen. King takes on g1, and now knight on e7. At least it comes with a fork. Here we have king on h7 again, and now knight takes on g6, and here at least black doesn't have any more checkmate threats. And here f takes g6 was played, and now knight on g7. And here Yusupov shows now really great attacking skills. He didn't take this knight, which is a very important thing, because his king is a good protected even by this white pieces. So the white is then the king is then not vulnerable to your opponent's attacks through the 7th rank. So this knight comes also as a good defensive piece here. It's an unbelievable game, I think. Knight on f2 with the attack against the rook, so that's why here bishop on f4 was played. If you try something like knight on e6 in order to escape with the knight, it's again a forced checkmate, because then we have knight on h3 with the preparation to create a checkmate on g1. If you take, then we have queen on f2 checkmate. So you can try some perpetual checks, but it's not possible. We can simply escape. Here we can play king on g8. If the bishop comes, then we have again king on g7. Knight on e6 can be played, but simply king on f6, not a problem. Bishop on the e5, and we can simply escape. Now the next moves are just simply prolonging the game, but the checkmate is again unpreventable. We have here queen on g1 checkmate. So that's why here bishop on f4 was played by Ivanchuk. He has to sacrifice the bishop in order to keep his chances in the game. Queen takes on f4 was played, and now knight on e6, attacking the queen again, queen on h1, again with the same idea to play knight on h3 and queen on f2 checkmate. Rook from d to b1 was played, again knight on h3, and now rook on b7, king on h8. We have rook on b8, and now queen takes on b8. You see, very nice calculations by Yusupov. He realized that he can always take this rook here on b8. Now bishop on h3 was played, and now queen on g3. And in this position, Vasily Ivanchuk resigned because there's no way to prevent here this checkmate on f2, and it was game over. Whoa, great tactics. I think really great tactical game. You see that it was really hard for this Stockfish engine to calculate all of these tactics. Very, very deep calculations by Artur Yusupov. As I said, he wasn't even here in the top 10 level. Here you see we had many players that were even better rated, and here Artur Yusupov played maybe one of his best chess games in history and deserves all of our respect, and his game of course deserves to be on a list on this best chess games of all times. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other best chess games of all time, and you can also watch my current commented chess games, and you can also watch my commented chess games played by computers with some Lila C0, Stockfish, and many more. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.